Guruve Gaura Chanjaya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavad Pranam devotees. So this is not particularly a question and answer. It is a sort of going back over of an earlier answer to a question that was sent to me about the nature essentially of being prudent for the times that we live in. And just recently I had spoken about the 12th canto, especially second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which the qualities of Kali Yuga discussed and the subsequent things that will take place essentially during the Kali Yuga. So from the perspective of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shri Vyasadevji was enumerating all of the bad qualities of Kali Yuga. And essentially, it can be taken as a roadmap for devotees to see the nature of what is and what's to come as far as the Kali Yuga is concerned. Of course, this Kali Yuga is very special because of the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so it is called Danya Kali. But the Danya Kali, meaning a gift or a special dispensation in the Kali Yuga, doesn't mean that it's absent of the qualities of Kali Yuga. It means that even in this Kali Yuga, Kalaya Dosha Nidhe Rajan, though it is an ocean of faults, devotees have the one great gift of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is they can take shelter of Sankirtan. So being prudent in understanding what taking shelter of Sankirtan means is important, because bhakti is not, what should I say, it's not like a, I'm trying to find the wording, it's not something that's void of pragmatism. It's not something that's void of being practical in your vyavaharic life. Vyavaharic means your external life, your material life. Bhakti Mahaprabhu described to Raghunath Das Goswami, I've mentioned this many times before, Antaranishtakara Bhayalokya Vyavahar. Internally, your bhajan life should be very deep. Externally, you should treat the world appropriately, which means one should be prudent. I think I mentioned in the first time I spoke about this in relation to the question that was asked, was that my Guru Parapadma, when he was asked about the impending changes that may have taken place when the millennium situation was going on, he said, be prudent and chant Hare Krishna. So it could have just as been, it could have been just as easy to say chant Hare Krishna, period, but he said be prudent and chant Hare Krishna, which is completely in line with the instructions of Mahaprabhu to Raghunath Das Goswami, that internally we should be doing bhajan, because bhajan is not an external show, it is the actuality of our unfoldment in bhakti inwardly. And there may be external qualities related to it, like the qualities of a Vaishnava, 26 qualities of a Vaishnava. They're external qualities representing what's going on inside. But never was there a time when, prudence was not put on the table as well. And the reason I'm giving some emphasis to this is because Al Srila Prabhupada also gave emphasis to how to respond to what would come about in the unfoldment of Kali Yuga. He mentioned that things would become very dire. He mentioned that things would become very intolerable in many ways, in terms of taxation, in terms of harassment, in terms of the quality of life, in terms of the lack of spirituality, the attack on spirituality, so many things. And so he, in making so many temples and communities, did so as a means of both giving a immediate shelter in the process of bhakti to train those souls who were fortunate enough to take inspiration due to their previous samskaras or whatever, to take shelter of these temples and to develop their bhakti, at least till they could get some footing in bhakti, and then perhaps in their, in their own individual lives, grahastha lives, etc., had a foundation to build on. But also Srila Prabhupada said that when things became very dire, that many people would come and look at the Krishna conscious communities as an alternative to what's happening under extreme circumstances. So it's not, of course, something that people aren't clear on, because all over the world there's issues going on, from wars to famines to economic issues to political issues to social issues. So it's not like the evidence of Srimad Bhagavatam and the descriptions of Kali Yuga not present. Just recently I'd done a class, and directly we pointed out from the 12th canto the manifestation of all of these anomalies of Kali Yuga, and we pointed them out as first being an attack on Dharma itself, because that's the first thing that's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, that first an attack on Dharma would take place. And then all the qualities related to Dharma, like mercy, tolerance, austerity, cleanliness, all would gradually go down and down and down. So we've seen that, because Kali Yuga has been in effect for now 5,000 years. So we're seeing the effect of that. And some devotees have spoken about the golden age, but the golden age is not something that is sort of a bubble that you live in for 10,000 years and like that. But the golden age is the nature of Mahaprabhu's unfathomable mercy, that the highest thing is given even to the lowest person, and that availability is there for all jivas. That is the nature of the special dispensation, so to speak. And in the Bhavishya Purana, quotes of 10,000 years, etc., etc., we have to try to understand that. But I don't want to get off track in the immediacy of the need to be prudent and try to begin to arrange devotees I'm speaking to directly, arrange their lives in such a way that their bhajan is not completely overrun by these circumstances in the world. So, and that's just a practical issue. If you're living in a place where it is so dangerous that it's difficult to go outside, if you're living in a situation where you don't have any means to have some kind of emergency preparation, if you don't have any family plan or community plan, this is probably a good time to start thinking about it and doing it. Because it's not a situation where we've maintained temples for years and years and farm communities for years and years, and then when they're most needed by devotees, the communities are not equipped. Because if suddenly so many people took shelter of many of the temples, how would they accommodate that? And most people, when they are under some kind of duress and they're under some kind of, need for spiritual shelter, they think about their spiritual community. That's what people think about. And in a lot of cases, in dire needs, people will take shelter of a spiritual community, church, spiritual farm community, whatever it might be. And then the question becomes, are those communities prepared to handle what to speak of maybe many other people outside of the immediate spiritual community? Are they prepared to handle that sort of thing? And even individually, is each family or each person for that matter kind of prepared for possibilities of extreme conditions? And it's not something that we can dismiss, because it's real. And people will have a reaction. I mean, if things become very dire, if there's extreme food shortages or extreme shortages of water even, you saw that people became very disturbed and almost uncivil over a shortage of toilet paper. So just try to understand what could happen in an extreme condition of a lack of food or water or other essentials, and how people will respond to that. And if lawlessness is so rampant when those things are not directly present in full, think of what would happen when those things are actually present in a more developed condition, when there's genuinely a lack of food and you can't just go to the store and get something. So it's prudent for devotees to start to, in their individual lives, first of all, because sometimes we speak in communal organizational terms, but all of that begins with an individual. So first, each individual should have some prudent plan about how to function under extreme conditions, right? And ultimately, in giving up this body or whatever the case might be, our inner shelter is the reality. But unless you're prepared to just go lay down and do that, then you have to have some viable plan. And the reason I'm speaking about this is because those conditions are there. I mean, it's pretty obvious in the world, these sort of things are there. So this would be a time, if you have not heretofore done it, to take up a path of prudence and make some preparation. What that might mean, that you need to stock some food, some medicine, some other things that are prudent to maintaining your family. If you decide to stay at home, and then you need to analyze and evaluate where you're staying. If you are staying in a place where your resources are completely under control, and those resources are not more or less controlled by you, then that's a pretty tenuous situation. If you suddenly had to be somewhere where everything is rationed and so forth and so on. So, and then, kind of lawlessness is going on and all these things. So it's both a reach out to individual devotees, and it's also reach out to devotee communities to kind of be more take up some urgency in developing prudence around the practical things regarding giving shelter for your community, and if you're an individual, in getting the necessities and preparing yourself if there's any, which is very likely, any real further developments in social situations that are not very tenable for executing bhajan peacefully. So I thought it was important to go over this because I have talked to some devotees, and I don't normally broach the subject because it's not something that's been foremost in my mind, so to speak. I mean, I've always exercised prudence to some degree, but I think for all of us, it's important to take it up with a more serious mindset, because looking at the things that are going on and seeing the possibilities of what could go on, and having the praman of our very mool sastra, our root scripture, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, I think devotees should take it very seriously and, sort of prepare themselves according to what they believe is the most prudent ways to do that. Now, probably some devotees may need to research that, because maybe some devotees have not thought about those sort of things, like what things are essential in a basic emergency situation. Maybe many devotees didn't think about it. It is a fact that people become accustomed to the conveniences of life. I remember preaching when we were opening temples in Africa, and in some places it was understood that everything was not always going to be available all the time, that there were some things that you had to prepare to be without for some time, and you had to adjust and so forth, so on. There were times when, there were no lights and so forth, so on, right? It's not unreasonable that, given the fact that even weather conditions can create emergencies very quickly, right, what to speak of the gradual unfoldment of things, that it's prudent to have some preparation. And if you are a community, or you live in a community, it's probably a good idea to have a meeting with the people in the community and have some prudent plan to accommodate emergency preparations for the community that's present, and probably for the community that will come about due to people looking for shelter. So, I mean, it might be a time to reach out to the community and say, hey, listen, understanding what is going on and the possibilities that may be, maybe everybody should mutually chip in to create a situation that would make the community a viable shelter for people if things got to a certain point. Because, even 100 people, even 50 people to suddenly show up in a lot of communities and be dependent on that community for food, shelter, and so many other things, many communities wouldn't be able to handle it. So, many communities are, they're kind of living basically enough to maintain the community. What to speak of a sudden influx of, 50, 100, or what to speak of 1,000 people or something, right? So, but Srila Prabhupada talked about these things, so it's probably important to have some sense of a plan that would be able to be executed that would accommodate that. And that may mean reaching out to the community at large and becoming more proactive in allowing the community to understand that if we want a viable shelter in the case of an emergency, it requires the community to also chip in and give effort to making that happen. And I think it's also, again, as I mentioned, important for the individual families and individual devotees, because even if it could not be done in an organized, collective way in the community, if every individual family and every individual had that, then they would have something to, at the time of need, have something to bring to a community. So they would not overburden the community and make everybody's, whatever they have, not viable for, any length of time, right? So this is just a reach out to individual devotees in the community to kind of take this kind of seriously, that we should chant Hare Krishna, and of course we should simultaneously be prudent about understanding our environment, where we're living and where we're trying to do bhajan life, right? And it's not that other places in the world necessarily won't go through this, so it's only here in America or only here, right? Overnight you saw a war break out in the country. Overnight, there was a pandemic, pretty much overnight, right? There's droughts in certain places. So, maybe these things were coming, but the point is, when they manifest at that time, it's very difficult to start suddenly trying to deal with it, right? All right, devotees, so this, though not a deeply philosophical or something on our theology, right? Still, it's, I think, an important topic and something that devotees should practically consider taking up no matter where you live in the world. Okay? All right, my Dandavat Pranams, all glories to Srila Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, Rupanuga Guru Varga, Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari, Jai Shri Shri Hare Krishna Yugal Ki Jai, Vanchakal Patrubhischa Kripa Sindhavevacha, Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe.